as architecture is influenced by various periods and movements which affect rapid development and diverse cultural influences, it can be seen from their architectural style starting from their early colonial period until today's era. Without any further ado, let's move on to the first architecture. Colonial architecture. One of the most significant architectural styles in the US is colonial architecture, which emerged during the 17th and 18th centuries when European settlers established colonies in America. Colonial architecture was heavily influenced by the architectural styles of settlers' home countries including England, France, and Netherlands. Some characteristics are symmetrical designs with a central entrance and evenly spaced windows on either side, modest in size and focused on functionality rather than ornate decoration. It was constructed using locally available materials such as timber, brick, or stone depending on the region. Here are three notable examples of colonial architecture in the US. First, English colonial architecture such as Fairbanks House in Dedham, Massachusetts. As the oldest timber frame house in North America, it was constructed in 1637 to 1641. It is characterized by timber frame buildings with steep roofs, large central chimneys, and decorative gables. Second, French colonial architecture. There is Ursuline Convent in New Orleans, Louisiana, that was constructed in 1727 as a convent, runs a hospital, and takes care of educating young girls. It features a symmetrical layout, a central courtyard, and distinctive French details. Third, Dutch colonial architecture with gambrel roofs or roofs with two slopes on each side, and a symmetrical layout such as the Wyckoff House that was built in 1652 in Brooklyn. It is the oldest house structure in New York City and was originally built by Dutch immigrants. The next architecture is federal architecture. Federal architecture emerged in the late 18th and early 19th centuries. During the Federalist era in the US, it was inspired by the neoclassical architecture of ancient Greece and Rome. Federal architecture is characterized by symmetrical facades with a central entrance and evenly spaced windows, often feature classical details such as columns, pediments, and decorative moldings. Entrances are accentuated with grand porticos or columned porches. They were meant to make a statement and give a sense of grandeur to the buildings, which added beauty and elegance to the buildings. One of the examples of this architecture is the White House in Washington, D.C., constructed around 1792 as the largest house in the U.S. until after the Civil War and as the official residence and workplace of the President U.S. It showcases asymmetrical facades, neoclassical elements like columns and pediments, and a grand entrance portico.
Moving on to the next architectures, American Gothic architecture.
Historically, American Gothic architecture was imported from the United Kingdom and thus became popular in the USA after a New York architect called Alexander Jackson Davis first introduced Gothic-style buildings to the United States in the mid-18th century. This style was also inspired by medieval Gothic architecture and later made its own way in the simpler forms of style known as American Gothic and sometimes also named as Carpenter Gothic, which are largely found for residents across northern part of America. And there are also some common features of American Gothic that differs from other architecture styles in the US. The most common thing of Gothic styles will always be pointed arch windows, and they are sometimes placed in the middle of the central gable, which mostly associated with pane windows, which is the windows that is divided into panes of glass. Another thing that is usually found in American Gothic styles in the US is the use of roof sections made at a steep angle, or known as a steeply pitched roof, which is often formed in a triangle shape. As for the wall on these styles, they were majorly found board and diamond siding, as they utilize vertical wooden panels with small strips covering the gap between them, as they provide more shadows and texture to the home exterior. So here are three most iconic landmarks in the US that adopted American Gothic style. First, we have Washington National Cathedral. It is the sixth largest cathedral in the world and was built in 15th century, located in the central city of Washington, D.C. The second landmark that is established in 1846, the Smithsonian Institutions, which features American Gothic architectures as its main design. The last example here is Boston College, built in 1913 as an iconic building, represents the best collegiate Gothic styles in Boston area. Moving on to the following architecture styles in the US, Victorian architecture. This style was originated in England, as it's named after the reign of Queen Victoria of Great Britain. It became a favorite style of 19th century in America, which includes various types of styles, and most popular styles in this period will be Italianate and Queen Anne, which is primarily known for its vibrant color in the mid to late 19th century. And there are also some key features of Victorian houses in the US. This style is mostly incorporated a bay window, which typically a window that sticks out of the outer wall of the house and usually has three sides. Here also we have a tower that is mostly associated on these building styles, which incorporated a turret, or we can say as a pointed roof. Here are some notorious examples of Victorian buildings in the US. The first is the Painted Ladies, otherwise known as Postcard Row or the Seven Sisters. This is a row of colorful Victorian houses located in San Francisco. Another type of houses that looks like this would be the Queen-style row houses projected in Georgetown, Washington, D.C.
The next one is Beaux-Arts architecture. Beaux-Arts architecture is a building style named after the École des Beaux-Arts in Paris, the legendary school where the principles of this popular late 19th and early 20th century architectural style were taught. Beaux-Arts, which is sometimes called academic classicism, American Renaissance, or Beaux-Arts classicism, became a favorite architectural style for government and institutional buildings such as art museums, train stations, libraries, university campuses, and courthouses in Europe and the United States. Many of the world's most celebrated and admired buildings are examples of Beaux-Arts architecture. The characteristics of Beaux-Arts architecture are focus on symmetry, hierarchy of interior spaces, classical details including columns and pediments, highly decorative surfaces, statues and figures embedded within the facade, race first history, and stone or stone-like materials. There are some examples of Beaux-Arts architecture building in the United States. The first one is Grand Central Terminal in New York. The second one is the Library of Congress Thomas Jefferson Building in Washington, D.C. And the last one is the Art Institute of Chicago. Next is the arts and crafts architecture. Arts and crafts ideals became popular in the United States at the end of the 19th century, starting in Boston and eventually spreading across the country. Most arts and crafts buildings in the US are houses, although some churches and chapels were also built in this style. It focuses on the social structure and economic livelihood of artisans around an art form. The first characteristic of arts and crafts architecture is structural authenticity, such as exposed beams, strong posts, and rafters that extend past the roofline. The second one is simplicity, such as open floor plans with built-in, smooth surfaces, and lack of intricate carving. The third one is native materials, such as wood, stucco, and brick. The fourth one is natural influences, such as earth tones and decorative items made of cell or bone. The last one is emphasis on home life, such as dim, hummy, glowing interiors, and prominent fireplaces. There are some examples of arts and crafts architecture buildings in the United States. The first one is Frank Lloyd Wright Home and Studio. This building is located in Illinois. The second one is Oregon Public Library, and this building is also located in Illinois. The last one is Robert R. Blaker House. This building is located in California.
Lastly, we're moving on to modern architecture. Modern architecture in the United States emerged as a response to the rapid industrialization and technological advancements of the 20th century. It broke away from traditional styles and sought to create innovative, functional, and aesthetically pleasing designs. Now, let's explore deeper on modern architecture in the USA. The early 20th century saw the rise of architects who laid the foundation for modernism in the United States. These included pioneers such as Frank Lloyd Wright, who developed the Prairie School style, emphasizing open interior spaces, natural materials, and integration with the surrounding landscape. Wright's most famous works during this period include the Robbie House in Chicago and Falling Water in Pennsylvania. The post-World War era saw a surge in modern architecture known as mid-century modernism. This style embraced functionalism, simplicity, and the integration of indoor and outdoor spaces. One of the architects in this era is Richard Neutra. Neutra's residential designs, including the Kaufman House, showcase the use of glass walls, open floor plans, and a seamless connection to the nature. Brutalism emerged as a prominent architectural style in the United States during the mid-20th century. It is characterized by the use of exposed concrete, geometric forms, and a focus on functionality. The style's name derives from the French term béton brut, meaning raw concrete. Postmodern architecture emerged as a reaction against the perceived coldness and the uniformity of modernism. It embraced historical references, ornamentation, and a sense of playfulness. Architects such as Robert Venturi, Michael Graves, and Philip Johnson were instrumental in popularizing this style. Lastly, contemporary architecture in the United States is characterized by its diversity and incorporation of cutting-edge technologies. Architects today blend various styles, materials, and sustainable design principles. Sustainable architecture has gained prominence with buildings designed to be energy efficient, environmentally friendly, and responsive to their surroundings. Related to our previous material, the architecture of the United Kingdom and the United States exhibit distinct characteristics and reflect their respective cultural, historical, and geographical contexts. While both countries have been influenced by various architectural styles, there are some key differences. Difference would lie on the historical influence, where UK architecture has been shaped by a rich history, while US architecture has a relatively shorter history. Second will be the architectural style, where UK showcase style from medieval to modernist, while USA showcase from colonial to postmodernism. Third will be on the regional variation, where UK has diverse landscape and cultural difference contributing to the difference, while USA has varying climates and cultural heritage resulting in the regional variation. The architectural history of the United States encompasses a rich tapestry of styles and periods. Throughout these periods, American architecture developed a unique identity, blending influences from Europe with the nation's own cultural and technological advancements. that is all about American architecture. Thank you for watching.